Hi there. I was asked to talk about literacy, what it means to me, whether I think it's important, and how it might be used to close the achievement gap. So I'll start with the definition of literacy. As an English teacher, I think of literacy as being able to understand and communicate well. I do think of literacy in more terms than just language, though. I think of literacy as being like visual, mathematical, as well as language. So financial literacy is equally as important to me as language literacy. And visual literacy, I think, is becoming more and more important to everyone. For example, this video, you're not reading this interview, you're watching it, right? So the ability to unpack and use information is your literacy, and your skills of literacy, I think, translate into every part of life. As far as my own literacy history, this is something I like to talk about as an English teacher. I grew up reading books. Books were rewards for me, so language literacy is something that has always been a huge part of my identity. And I don't think that's true for everyone. Some people don't like reading, and I think that happens for a lot of different reasons. As far as using literacy to close the achievement gap, I think it's important to clarify what I mean when I say achievement gap. Traditionally, I think people mean the gap between students who come to school prepared, whether that means they come from families that have a lot of money and resources or neighborhoods that have a lot of money and resources, and then the student sometimes ends up, just by being in those neighborhoods or those families, more likely to be successful. Or there's this gap, and the reality is that there are students who come from families and neighborhoods that don't have a lot of wealth or resources. And students from those areas traditionally tend to not come to school quite as prepared and ready for success. So closing the achievement gap using literacy, I think, is a really important idea, and it's probably 98% of why I'm an English teacher in an urban school district. I think that accessing students' different types of literacies, so going back to that idea of there being more than just language literacy, having my students look at ideas that I want them to access through books and language, but using visuals first, that's something I do to hopefully close the achievement gap. So when students come to my 12th grade English class and they have learned to hate reading or writing, I know a lot of them love music and videos and art, and so I might try to access their music literacy or their artistic visual literacy first to help them to see that the concepts in the books we read are the same things that they're interested in other areas of their life. So yeah, I think that literacy is one of the most important things. It's therapy for me to be able to read and write and communicate. It's purpose for me to be able to tell my story. And it's literally my job to make sure that the students I encounter every day become confident in whichever forms of literacy they choose to use.